Stem cells are the body's master cells, the source for all of our other cells. Most scientists believe they will transform medicine as we know it by providing treatments for everything from blindness to liver dysfunction. Dr. Jane Roskams is a professor in the Department of Zoology at UBC. She is a member of the Brain Research Center, and she is a member of the International Collaboration on Repair Discoveries, and it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Jane Roskams back to Studio 4 to tell us more.
Thank you.
About those stem cells.
Yep.
Now, I read in my little encyclopedia that stem cells are master cells, and I hope that's right.
They are. I mean, what we're now realizing is there are stem cells, like the stem cells we have in an embryo, that make everything, but there are other subtypes of stem cells that can rebuild different organs, for example. So although the word stem cell, clinically speaking, does mean a cell that can make any cell in the body, the cells that are actually a little more specialized for different tissues may be the ones that are most useful for most of us to think about using in medicine. Okay,
so doctor, if you put a stem cell beside an ordinary cell, how are they different?
So, enormously.
Okay. Will this take an hour?
No, but the main way we tell how they're different, other than, we can look down a microscope, actually, with certain kinds of tools and see, oh look, that's a normal liver cell, brain cell, there's a stem cell. But we do this by looking at the genes that they have switched on. So you can look at sets of genes, and the subset of tools, genes that a stem cell is using, will be very different than a brain cell, or a liver cell, or a kidney cell.
Okay. And are they smarter? Or can you say that?
They're more open.
More open.
So they're kind of like a small child that you can help mold and push in directions and open their eyes to become anything. And they're not closed like we are, to a degree.
Okay, and what is the exciting research you're doing now?
So one of the things that we've recently discovered and been in the news for is following some of those clues about what makes a stem cell special versus a cell that's functioning in the mature nervous system. We followed a lot of those clues and collaborated with a large-scale project that I helped to bring together out of a place called the Allen Institute in Seattle. So the Allen Institute was formed by Paul Allen, Microsoft's former partner of Bill Gates.
Right.
And he is fascinated by the brain, and what he wanted to do was take a big chunk of his money, build an institute that could do high-end, technology-driven discovery research that any individual university couldn't afford to do.
Okay. Is there a reason he's fascinated by the brain, aside from the fact he has a fairly smart
decent one
brain,
himself?
A decent brain?
You know, this is a good question. He always has been. You know, you find a lot of people, you know, even though they might make their money in one genre,
right,
end up being incredibly fascinated by something. It could be music, it could be poetry. For him, it's apparently always been the brain. So what he did was he built this building and put enormous millions of dollars into equipment and people to do what we call high throughput imaging of where genes are turned on in the brain. So he focused largely on the brain and then was open to ideas. So about 5 years ago, I brought to him the idea of doing the same thing for the spinal cord, because despite the fact that there are a number of researchers working on the spinal cord, it's a small field with potentially enormous return when it comes to discovery for disease, for injury, of course, for trauma.
Sure.
So they were very open to this and essentially said, if you could bring funding partners to the table and scientists to help with this, we'll consider doing it. So that's essentially what we did. We hit the phones and they worked with us. And it was the first time that a lot of foundations that normally compete against each other for funding research from Europe and the US worked with me and groups of other researchers from Canada to essentially bring together a funding pool that Paul Allen then said, I'll put the rest of the money up. It's going to cost about $3 million to get the whole project done. But what we'll do is we'll produce a tool that we'll put on the World Wide Web for researchers anywhere across the world to be able to access the information from.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful.
It's a great tool. And the spinal cord, complicated part of the central nervous system. The central nervous system and what goes on in our spinal cord, my goodness.
Absolutely.
complex. When we come back, we'll talk about that and
Great.
how the brain connects and what can happen, and trauma too. If somebody is paralyzed, will there be a way one day to regenerate the spinal cord with a stem cell?
You bet.
After this.